If you're brand new to retail and you are looking to rent a space, to start a store, to start a restaurant, whatever it might be, there are so many things that can go wrong along the way. These little traps, these common traps can mean the difference between having a successful business at year 3, at year 5, at year 10, and going from one location to 100, or going bankrupt. Today I'm joined with Bud Morris, who is the president and founder of Canada's Best Store Fixtures. He has a lot of years of experience. We're not going to say how many years. He's going to give us the behind-the-scenes information we need in order to start a successful retail business. Bud, how you doing today?
Doing great, Mark. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So right off the top, I have to imagine that if you're first getting into retail, the first thing you're going to think about is your store, right? Like where should we be located, and where are we going to set this up, and signing the lease and all of that stuff. Real estate is a huge part of retail that people often, I think, overlook or don't really realize how important it is. They're so focused on product and they're so focused on environment and style and brand and what are we going to sell, and then they're like, we just need a place to set it up. Retail's got to be a huge trap for people. Where are some of the ways that people just totally mess up and then later go like, oh, that was a huge mistake?
Location, right? And there's then the other, build it and they will come. How many times you see it in restaurants? We were just having this conversation the other day. See it in restaurants a lot. There's one right around the corner from us. There's this location, and it's kind of a crappy location. And we saw like 7 restaurants go through and fail over and over and over again. Then this dude comes in, first time, opens up a restaurant, and he stays closed and renovates. Spends a fortune renovating the place. Opens it up, and I go in, and I kind of want to. First, I want to go in and check out the interior because I'm a furniture nut. But so I go in, and one of the first questions I asked, I'm like, why here? Like, did you not know the history of the place? Did you do any research? The food is fantastic. The place is rammed all the time now. And it's so, sometimes it is build it and they'll come. If you have a real differentiating offer, then people will come. It's not always the best location, but then there are some locations that are, unfortunately, they're just dogs. So I think that it behooves people to do the right research and make sure that it fits their potential audience. But I mean, moreover, you have to have, no matter where you are, you have to have, unless you're just a convenience store, you have to have, a differentiating offer, a destination, someplace that people want to go to for, to find what they're looking for.
But I would have to say it's not only just about that destination. My wife and I were in Niagara-on-the-Lake over the weekend. We love going in the off season. And as I'm walking on one side of the street, for listeners who don't know, it's this quaint little town, very, very kind of touristy, lots of bakery shops and knick-knack shops and chocolatiers and all of these kind of things. But I'm thinking of, I've been there 4 or 5 times. I have never gone into a store that is not on the main street.
Interesting.
And so off, around the corner from the main street, there are all these art galleries and all these things, and they have signs saying like, come get sandwiches right around the corner.
Please
and I'm
come, please.
And I'm like, yeah, please come buy something. We're literally just a few steps from the main street. And I was watching all the busloads of tourists get off.
Yeah.
And you walk down one side, you cross, you walk up the other side. No one is just going 1 or 2 doors down any side street.
Interesting.
And I'm thinking that side street rental may be 20, 30% cheaper. But that 20 or 30%, I have to imagine, is the difference between having a successful business, and even then, the businesses are turning over a lot. But It could be the difference between having a successful business and a total thing that goes bankrupt in 5 months, like just that walkability. So, if you have a target audience or customers or people that you're expecting to drive to you versus walkability versus other things, that has to like totally change how you look at everything, right?
Of course, yeah. And you think about that. For a first time retailer, what a commitment that is. I mean, landlords are mean, right? Like you don't sign a month to month.
Landlords, I think,
lease.
are the only people who are making money in some of these towns, right? Like do you know what I mean?
100%.
They own the property, they get rent whether you're successful or not, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't pay month to month. You commit to 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you're committed at that point in time. You are committed for the whole period, whether your store makes it or whether it doesn't. You're committed for that entire period of time. I think that probably gets overlooked for the guy, that's one street over in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and saves his 20%. Congratulations, save it for the next 5 years when you've got no money coming in. That's a big commitment. Those leases, and I think that they're overlooked. I remember in my early days of, in the manufacturing business, I remember this clear as a bell. We signed on with a big landlord. It was a 4,000 square foot space, and the lease that he gave me was like this. And I pored over this lease. I went through every page. I marked it all up. I had questions. I had highlights. I had stickers. I had to go into the landlord's office with this huge table, 16-foot long table. He's sitting at the other end. I'm sitting at this end. And I opened the book and I started to flip through it. I asked him a question, and he has nothing in front of him. He's looking at me like this. I asked him a question, page 1, section. He just looks at me and he goes, no. Okay. Flip the page. I asked the next question. He just looks at me and he goes, no. And just for reference, my answer is going to be no to every question you ask. So do you want to keep going? Do you want the space or not?
Yeah. So this is the lease.
That was basically it.
You either sign it or you don't, right?
Right. So I closed my book. Thank you very much for the lesson. And off I went. I signed. I take the space. Fine. But I think a lot of people overlook that commitment. It's a big one because the space is so important. Not only location, but how much space. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's not enough. And what's better? Is better to have not enough space, or better to have too much space? The answer is it depends. It depends what your business is and what you're selling, what you're retailing. We look at the big coffee guys in and around North America now are, they're in downsizing mode. Everyone loves drive-thrus now. If you look on the sides of the highways now, there's little tiny spaces with drive-thrus. You can't knock them. They're money makers. So, if I'm a retailer, why do I want to build all this space and have people linger around my store? Once they've made their purchase, then they're going to linger and they're just going to take up space. That's one side of it. The other side of it is I'm building a space where I want people to come, enjoy, sit, relax, linger, maybe buy not just one thing, maybe come back after sitting for half an hour and buy another thing. So I think the answer is it depends, and you need to do your research, and you need to know your business. You need to be thinking about these things before you jump in. That's the advice with respect to real estate.
But if you're a first-time retailer, what do you do? Do you just people watch? Do you reach out to those who've done it before and ask for mentorship? Do you watch YouTube videos? I mean, like how do you find out this information?
Yes, the answer is yes to all of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
do all
yes,
of that.
yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, absolutely. Watch your competition. What are they doing? Yeah, people watch. Absolutely. By people watching and, ghost shopping, seeing how people spend, what they're spending on, do all that research. I mean, research is invaluable. No one knows your products better than you. And a lot of times, you see TV commercials about it around banking and stuff like that, where entrepreneurs know their industry, know their business, but don't know how to bank, don't know how to buy real estate, don't know how to, some things big retailers do very easily because they're a machine. That's what they do all the time. But for a one-timer, a first-timer, these are big events that require a lot of research. And there's, even the big machines. I recall back when Target came into Canada, they flew us to Minneapolis just to sit with their senior executive team and ask questions. And they were just asking us questions. They we understand if you don't want to share information, but we want to understand your market and just start asking questions about, who are the big contractors in the area, and generally what do you pay for labor, those kinds of things. They really did their research. Now, of course, we all know they messed it up for other reasons, but
yeah.
But they approached it from the right perspective. I mean, I was shocked. I was amazed. I thought I was really impressed the way they came into the market and just fully, we don't understand your market and we want to learn and we're here to help. And that was the way they came in, and they just sort of started asking questions, and I was happy to answer them to the best of my ability. I mean, so it was a good experience. But I suggest for sure the first timers, ask as many questions as you want. Call me. I'm happy to help.
You one of your clients, Farm Boy, which is a high growth retailer in the grocery space, you had connected me with one of the executives there, and I was asking about how can you grow so quickly. We're talking about like 10 stores, 13 stores, 20 stores, 30 stores, over a quick period of time. And what I was surprised by, the response was, we move incredibly slow on locations. Like, the location is so important and it's such a commitment that we will watch and research and look and watch and watch. And the reason for this, I brought it up, is a different grocery retailer in the area around the corner from my office had this huge space. I don't know, honestly, after the pandemic, if they're still around, but the company was called Michelangelo's, and they were in Markham, and they had this massive space that I think used to be this kind of Farm Boy or warehouse type thing. And I guess they wanted to downsize, so they closed their location for like 9 months to do this huge renovation. And they give up easily half the space that they turn into a gym. And so they open to the most beautiful location. So now Michelangelo's has turned into a much smaller property that is more about like a deli and cheeses and all of this great stuff, which is perfect for the area. It's perfect for the corporate shopper who wants to come in for lunch, for the people who want to host parties. But the gym took up all the parking. And so
great idea right up until that point.
So you could not go there at lunchtime because you could not park. And so I stopped going. I used to buy lunch there every single day. And I stopped going there, and I started going to the Longos across the street simply because there was no parking.
There's no parking.
Now, in the same plaza, I watched a Starbucks come in and within 12 months leave because there's no drive-through window and there was no parking. And we saw store after store come and go simply because during certain peak times, morning, evening, lunchtime, the gym was taking up all the parking.
Right.
So that Michelangelo's closed within a year, and they had to leave the location, and now it's like a Baby Bjorn or something. I don't know what it is. It's a baby store shop, low volume type shop.
Right.
But
that's terrible though, right? Because what a good strategy. It was a great strategy coming out of the gate. It was a great idea.
Yeah.
They didn't think that all the way through.
I had never
parking's
seen
a huge thing though.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, Loblaws buys Shoppers Drug Mart, and in a lot of cases, a lot of times, I know in Woodbridge here, in a couple of areas, there's Shoppers Drug Mart across the street from one of the Loblaws brands, Fortino's or what have you. And depending on what you want to do, if you just want to pop in and grab some milk and some stuff, then you go to Shoppers. If you're going to do a shopping, then you go to Loblaws. It's brilliant, right? And Shoppers Drug Mart, all the parking is right up front. It's easy, in and out. It's fantastic. Now, I think you got to think about all of those things. I'm crushed by that Michelangelo story. That's what a great strategy gone bad. I mean, and who knew? And the gym guy's going, yeah, well, business is great.
Yeah. LA Fitness is not worried about the fact that this little grocer who had such a great thing had to close a location that they spent 9 months building. They closed within the year, and it was 100% because I talked to the people who worked there. I said, "Why are you guys closing? What's going on?" They said, "Parking. No one's coming in." That was it. Yeah,
and then how do you deal with that after? You're not going to say, "Okay, LA Fitness guy, just there's no more parking for you. You cut the parking lot in half or something. You can't do that. It's that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate, but a very, very good lesson. I mean, wow.
And so as we wrap up, the most important thing, which is location in real estate, I guess we can't stress enough how important it is to just move slower. I know it feels like if I don't have, like a scarcity, like a gold rush, like a Wild West, if I don't get this location, and if I don't lock into extra square footage, and if I don't create the thing that's going to be awesome in 5 or 10 years, then I'm gonna crash. When in fact, you may not make it to year 5 or 10 if you take on too
100%.
much, or if you ignore walkability, or if you ignore parking, or any of these other like really. I guess the lesson is you cannot ignore how lazy customers are, how easy they want things to be, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, 100%. We had a client that was growing really rapidly down in Florida. They had a great concept. They have a great concept. It was bulk food. It was kind of like one of the bulk retailers up here that we know of. But they were doing really well.
You don't want to say Bulk Barn,
right? They were doing really well. They were growing really fast, but they were making all of those mistakes. They were in such a hurry to grow. They had all this capital to spend. They were in such a hurry to grow that, they got a couple of the real estate companies on their side, and they were searching out, these properties, and, brand new plazas going up, and it's in this great area, without doing the research, who your neighbors are, and, the parking and all that stuff. And as soon as times got a little tough, it was the beginning of COVID. They got stressed pretty quickly, and had to shut down 13 of the 14 stores. There's one store left now. They're just talking about rebuilding now, and starting to expand again, which is exciting. And they're going to go in with their eyes wide open this time. That you need to be able to survive the stress test, right? Any business needs to be able to survive a bit of stress. You can't just, base everything on how things are going today. You look into the future, look into, what if we have a pandemic?
Well, no one saw that one coming.
Couldn't have said that 5 years ago.
Okay, so let's say that our first time retailers who are watching this, they've signed the lease, they found the location, they've done all the research, they're ready to go. What's the next mistake that most people fall into when they're doing this for the first time?
They don't call me. That's the next mistake they make. They got to call.
Just call Buddy. He'll take it, and you'll figure it all out for them.
Yeah, a designer is extremely important at this stage. The designer exterior, designer interior. Hopefully, that's the same person. To start to think about look and feel and space planning and it's kind of chicken and the egg. You before you sign the lease, you want to be thinking about space planning. You want to be thinking about how I'm going to merchandise. Here's my stuff. We want to be having those conversations prior to you signing your lease. But you signed your lease. Now we've got to plan the space. We've got to light the space. Lighting is critical. Not to underlight and not to overlight. A space is and even big retailers.
So you've seen it go both ways. Underlit, like what happens if you overlight? What happens if you underlight?
When LED panels first became a thing, which was back in sort of early mid 2000s, LED panels. So we take a 4 foot wide by 6 foot tall panel and completely light it. And shoppers thought, this is really cool. We're going to start lighting our cosmetics areas, and literally went crazy with them. Like we put them everywhere. And when you had a store that had no merchandise in it, and you turned on all these lights, it was so impressive. Like the areas where the cosmetics were going were very impressive looking. Then you put the product on the shelf, and because it was backlit, the front of the product was dark. So blew it all together. I mean, so here, now we had all of this
So the
product
shelves,
on the
the
shelf that
shelves
had
looked
these,
really great, but the product you couldn't
the
even
shelves
see it.
when they're if you were there to buy the shelves, it was a really impressive display. But if you wanted the product on the shelves, you couldn't really see what it was. So then we go right overboard. Now we've backlit it. Then we said, well, we can't see the face of the product, so we need to have some lights from the ceiling shining on the face of the product. I was like, oh, what are we doing here? Then the hydrometers go spinning around. You can see the store from space. Anyway, so they should rethink all that, and now we have a small a pin LED that sort of goes up underneath the front of the shelf and lights down on the product below it and casts a beautiful light over the face of the product, so you can see and read and shop it much better than backlighting. But another very valuable lesson learned.
You've just touched on something that I've not even considered, but also haven't even heard retailers talk about. Are retailers concerned or thinking about utilities? Like, is that something that's like, I know it's a line item, but to me, it just seems like a cost of doing business.
Yeah, well, yes, retailers are thinking about utilities. More specifically, the transition from fluorescents to LEDs. That's a big one. It seems like we're far enough along now that it's low hanging fruit. If you have the old public school fluorescent lights in your space, then you need to change those. They're going to save you some money, and they're going to cast a better light and provide a better environment for your clients, for your customers. So that's kind of seems to me, and may not be. So it's worth mentioning. It may not be to everybody. It seems to me that it's second nature, but maybe it's because I live and breathe in the business. But once you're into,
well, I can say that you and I have worked together for a decade, and this is the first time I've ever thought of it.
Okay, so maybe it's not that obvious. See, that's good. You don't know what you don't know. But yeah, utilities are important, and in a retail space, obviously, it's not going to be water unless it's a grocery store. But it's lighting for sure. That's where the bulk of your draw is going to be. So, and LEDs are the way, 100%.
Now, along the same line, working with your team for so many years, I've heard some real horror stories where some really great hustle kind of entrepreneurs know that they got the product, know that they have the audience, know that they have the location, and when they're moving into their space and they're signing their lease, they don't realize that all they get is an empty box in their space.
Right.
And when they're budgeting their space build out, not only are they kind of used to maybe more like residential costs, like I know what a kitchen counter costs because I replaced my kitchen. But so moving from kind of residential to commercial, but as well, they're responsible for all HVAC, all electric, all lighting, all flooring, and the build out and the fixturing and everything. And so a lot of times they get surprised by tens of thousands of extra dollars that they have to spend on things that customers never ever see.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's where when you're negotiating your lease, you negotiate your free rent period, where you can be in the space for an idea. Typically it's 2 to 3 months that a landlord will give you for free. And sometimes that's just net rent and not inclusive of TMI. Sometimes you got to pay the TMI anyways. But as much as you can get for free out of your landlord, get it. Get it up front at the time of negotiation, because once you sign, nothing more is free. Nothing. You can ask all you want, and the answer will be no. The answer is no. You write the check. You do it. But yeah, that's the time to do it up front. And to get as much free rent as you can, because you're exactly right. Once you've changed the lock and it's your building and you're paying to change the lock, then everything that goes on inside, above, around that building is your responsibility. And it can be costly. 100%, it can be costly.
And I know that within Canada's Best Store Fixtures, you guys also act at times as a general contractor. So retailers can come to you. And again, this isn't a sales pitch or whatever, but this is leading to a question. Retailers can come to you. They can say, okay, I've got this empty white box. Just take care of everything for me. Is permitting often overlooked? Is the cost of, approved contractors like electricians and plumbers and other people where the landlord might actually have an approved list of contractors you have to work with that may come at a higher cost? Is union versus non-union workers come at a higher cost? Like all these additional things that I would never think about as a hustler, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, that might be sitting back there. Do you bump into that a lot?
Yes, we do. And probably 2 years ago, we had a nightmare of a build go on at Fairview Mall. It was, and the retailer was going on the cheap. Where there was a fast food retailer, and they were going on the cheap with all of their trades. They were getting them as cheap as they could, the general contractor was bad enough, but the retailer took it on themselves to manage all of the sub trades that they could and take it, so now you're dipping into the general contractor's pocket, right? So, because the general contractor would typically take a piece of the electrician, take a piece of the plumber, take a piece of the flooring guy, take a piece of the painter. The retailer said, no, you're not doing that. I'm hiring the painter. It's my brother-in-law. I'm hiring the electrician. So the general contractor is kind of like, okay, then they're your trades. That you manage them and you tell them when to be here, when they can't be here, and make sure that they don't get in the way of, my carpenter, my drywaller, my HVAC guy. And it turned into an absolute nightmare. A job that should have taken 4 weeks took 16. The retailer at that point in time, their free rent time is up. So now they're paying for a space that they're paying for people to work in, and they're not making any money. So it's a double whammy. It's bad. So my advice would be find a general contractor that, and it's the same thing. You got to do your research, check around. And if you're in a mall or a plaza space that, has some time, they typically can, the landlords can typically reference contractors that have worked in the building before, that they like, that they know will keep the space clean, and they'll be, they'll be respectful of the area. I would use those references 100%. Or, come to me. I can help you.
That can't be your answer to everything.
It's shameless, really. It's a shameless plug.
Well, but here's the truth. I mean, how many, I don't want to age you too much, but how many years have you been in retail?
Right. I hate that question. It's 27 years.
Wow, you're so old.
Yeah. Right?
Is that why you hate the question? Because it makes you feel old?
Yes. It's a reminder that I am old, but I am wise.
But thank you so much for sharing this. Is there, just in terms of final thoughts, what would be your number one tip for anyone who is, again, they're opening a location for the first time? Number one tip.
Yeah, it's research. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be shy. I mean, and ask people. It's amazing. We have a meeting. I have a meeting tomorrow morning with a retailer they're a rental chain that's been around for a while, Stevenson, and they admittedly, their retail area. This was the first meeting we had with them. They said our retail area sucks, and I'll tell you, it's not the core part of our business. We rent equipment. That's what we do. That's where we make money. We rent equipment. However, we have these retail spaces where we could make money done well. So we don't know how to do it. Help us. Perfect. That is absolutely perfect. We're going to design the space. We're going to help them re-merchandise. We're going to give them some merchandising aid, simple things, ticket strips, how to print labels, things like that. Very basic advice, and it's going to take them, over the moon.
Well, I have to say, I like Stevenson's. I'm a huge fan of Still because I'm German. And so when I went to go buy all of my
vendor
equipment,
fixtures, right? Still has all their vendor fixtures, right?
what's wrong with vendor fixtures?
That's
though?
all coming out.
Is it?
So vendor fixtures. So I guess there's nothing wrong with vendor fixtures. Vendor fixtures.
Okay, so what are vendor fixtures first of all?
Okay, so vendor fixtures. So you see it a lot in small, health food stores or these kind of rental kind of places where a Steel or somebody has an organic soap that they want to put in your space, and they'll give you a little end cap free with your first purchase of a full end cap of soap, those kind of things. So you can get into these spaces where, because the fixture is free, you look around and you see a lot of convenience stores. The space is filled with vendor fixtures. There's no rhyme or reason to anything. There's nothing that's shoppable. You have your organic soap over here. Next to it is, dinky cars, and next to it is, shock absorbers. So, it doesn't make there's no rhyme or reason. Now, you saved money on the fixtures, but your store at some point in time becomes cluttered and unshoppable. So, just another one of those things. Balance and do your research and don't go overboard in any of these directions, I guess.
I love it. Amazing advice. And at the end of the day, just call Bud.
Right. Just call me, please. I'll answer the phone and we'll just talk. That's free of charge. The talk is free of charge.